So you get.
So we have several people here. So welcome to the UH Energy's info session on ESG in energy. And I'm Radha Krishnan, and service managing director for UH Energy. I have several of my colleagues and other people who are very heavily involved in this program. So maybe I'll take a little bit of time to introduce many of them. This is being done under the guidance of our advisory group. We have a group called CECSR, which is Consortium for Corporate Social Responsibility, and we have a advisory group. Amy Mifflin is one of the members of the advisory group. Amy comes with a background of having worked for Marathon Oil and more recently Motiva, and now she's an independent consultant. And she is primarily the force behind developing this course. The other members of the advisory group, we have Chris Angelitis. He is a senior executive at Shell in charge of the energy transition for the Americas. And Chris has got years and years of experience in the area of ESG. So thanks, Chris. Thanks, Amy, for coming. As we go through this, periodically, I may just call on them to really help us out. I'd like to introduce again a couple of other people who are very critical for the program. And Zach, if you decide to sign up, and Kay, if you decide to sign up, you will be interacting with them. And we have Lauren Keebler. She is a program manager in UH Energy, but very key figure in making things happen. And the same is true with Lee Lopez. So she is also very heavily involved in making sure that we are doing this program right. Many times you don't see many of the people, actors behind the scenes who really make sure everything works. And one of them is Kyle Kinder. And Kyle is the one, whenever you visit our website, go for registration or all of this, there is nowhere it says done by Kyle Kinder, or there's no signature at the bottom which says KK, but that's him. He is the force behind it. And finally, to keep us all in line, we always have, you need somebody who's critical, making sure we have done things right and giving it different kinds of a thought. And that is Dr. Alan Rossiter. He's executive director for our training programs at UH Energy. And Alan has a real knack of what they call as being diplomatic. He'll tell you how to go to hell, and you look forward to the trip. So Alan is very good with giving you critique, but it never comes across in any negative way. You really enjoy the fact that he is giving you a critique, and then you take it and incorporate it.
Well, maybe we need to have a skills building class.
That's the first time I've been introduced that way. I need to think about this one.
And it was recorded, Alan. So.
Yeah, so it must be true.
I would pay a lot to learn that.
I would too.
Not
my life would have been. Yeah,
a lot of people have that kind of a skill, and I'm always, anytime we do this, we'll always share it with Alan because he's got a knack of looking at things. He's got a special set of magnifying glasses or lenses, and somehow he utilizes them very effectively. With that, let me start sharing the slide deck. So let's start out with the program here. I think I can, it should. Yeah, there we go. I'll minimize this. And I hope everybody can see the slide deck. Okay. So the program, we call it as ESG in energy. And it was a result of a lot of iterations of how we got to this point of offering such a course or such a program. And I would have to say that the advisory group had been extremely influential in making this program. So to begin with, uh, when we started out on this, we were really trying to understand what is it that the industry in energy industry community requires in the area of ESG or in the area of corporate social responsibility. And one of the things that came out from the advisory group and talking to others also was the fact that there is a lot of effort that is going on in this area. However, there is no formal training, neither from a university nor from a standpoint of outside courses. There are a lot of courses that are offered in this area, but there are some differences, and I'll go through that shortly. So, if you really look at the energy industry, they're going through major, transition, and the biggest thing that they are challenged with, and I know Chris knows a lot about it because he's trying to implement it on behalf of Shell, is providing a growing population with affordable, reliable, and sustainable energy. So when we're thinking about those, ESG plays a very critical component in this. So some of the challenges in the ESG area are public expectations and actions against the pandemic that is going on. And we have always had the energy industry and industry in general concerned about environmental challenges. So the EPA was set up in the late 70s. And ever since, people have been coming up with how do we manage environmental challenges. So that has been going on, most of it regulated with the laws that are passed, and then you just to obey the laws. However, more recently, there are a lot more additions to this area, to this space in environmental challenges, having to do with climate change and all the environmental concerns associated with that. Uh, so the social side of things, which is the ESG, again, many companies have been practicing the social side of things, managing, acting in wherever they are operating in a socially responsible manner. However, it is also taking on additional dimensions. You do so much, then new things kind of pop up. And so worker and community health and safety is again getting a lot more attention. And then more things that are coming up more recently, many of you would have heard about that, are basic human rights. And all of this is getting translated into investors asking the board, how well are you managing these kinds of challenges? So why do investors get involved? All of these things pose a risk. So if I were an investor and I'm putting money into a company, I just would like to make sure that my return is going to be there. So when I see some of these risks that are coming out in terms of climate actions and many other areas, there is a certain amount of concern. Is the management of the company managing these risks in a responsible manner? So governance starting to become a question. Investors are not yet asking, demanding very specific things. They are just saying, tell me more about how you're handling. So this whole thing about knowing how to manage ESG is becoming more and more important. We need, obviously, whatever you are doing inside your corporation, people would not know unless you talk about it or you communicate them. And in many cases, you have to include them as part of your annual report, especially the risk part of it. Every company is required to report it in their annual report. If you picked up any company's annual report more recently, you would just see there are a lot more things, especially if it's an energy company, in the area of climate change and social responsibility. So it's becoming clear that proper ESG management is an important contributor to maintaining the license to operate. If you do not have that, people can shut you down. This should not come as any surprise, because if you are not able to handle some of the social issues, you can see that in the case of the Keystone extension pipeline, lots of challenges because communities are concerned. And if you are not able to address it properly, it really is going to be, impacting your project. Again, if you do a good job in this area, it enhances your reputation. And all of this is becoming more and more important in accessing capital. So when you talk to lots of CEOs, especially of some of the smaller companies and pipeline companies who are constantly looking for capital to put new projects together, investors are saying, what are you doing in this area before I feel comfortable and will advance you the money? So let me stop there and see whether any of my colleagues have anything to add, especially Amy or Chris.
No, I think that was spot on.
Okay. All right.
Hold on, I couldn't find the unmute button. Just a quick comment from me, Radha.
Yeah, please.
I think, some of the interesting things about, the broader ESG space, we have evolved in industry to where it was a nice to have, maybe now is a must have, but part of what the industry is starting to try and understand is, can this be done proactively? And does proactive engagement and proactive decisions in the ESG space give you some level of protection, or perhaps give you some enhanced competitiveness? So that's sort of the new area where ESG is going, and I think in energy industry is one that's testing these boundaries.
Thank you, Chris, for that. I think a very important point. So when you look at this, this is a journey. And you would, as Chris pointed out, some are quite advanced. They have evolved. They understand this. They have been at it. I know Shell has been at it at least from 1998 on. So are some of the other large oil and gas companies. So it is evolving. But now, as he said, what was nice to have, and then it was good to have, now it's becoming very important, must have. And can you, if you're going that route, can you make it into a competitive advantage? So thanks for pointing that out. So one of the things that is stopping some of these people is essentially having a good understanding, knowledge, and skills. If you have not been at this for as long as people like Shell have been, you're starting to learn and you're trying to figure out, what is it that I have to do? So the purpose of this course is essentially to really see whether we can teach some of that. So I'll show that learning objectives in the next slide. So the way we try to put this program together is what we call as micro-credentialing. If you were to, and I just, Zach, you mentioned a little while ago, if you are really saying, hey, you want to take up a master's or a bachelor's or some kind of a degree, it's a long journey, a long commitment. And but for the kind of thing that you're looking for, most people are saying, can I have a skills to re-qualify myself or qualify myself better for areas where I am interested in working? So this whole badging program is about developing skill sets. So it is not about, lots of theory and knowledge, which is good to have, and university courses offer that. But this badging program is about skill set. Think about it like, if you are, kind of programmer, you get a badge on Java, or you get a program on some other software. It says you have the skill set. So that immediately tells people, if I need help in this area, I can hire. So this is essentially oriented towards developing skill sets. So the way we have made it is 15 hours per badge. And so we are initially offering 3 badges. So every 15 hours, so we meet, twice a week. We'll talk about that a little later, but 15 hours per batch. So it comes in small chunks that you can bite, eat, and then move on to the next one. And the nice thing is these are stackable. You do one batch and then you can get on to, based on what you have learned, you can get on to other badges. So the first round, we are offering 3 badges because that we feel gives you the foundation. I'll talk about them a little later. And as I mentioned earlier, a huge amount of guidance from people who have been in this business for a long time, which is the our advisory board members, like Chris and like Amy. We have other people from Oxy and from Schlumberger and from independent consultant. So these are people who have worked in this. They are not coming in just with 1 or 2 years experience. These guys have had at least 10 years of real hands-on experience managing ESG CSR. Okay, that gives us to the next point. It is actually designed. These guys have been very helpful in structuring what is important, what should be included, what would make sense for practitioners. And so it is designed and presented by leaders from industry. 2 things, it is designed, they just to give us the what is important, but even actually are really delivering it, we bring them in and they give real life examples, practical ways so that we can make these problems or their solutions very real for the participants. Okay. So by the time you go through this course, the idea here is to give you some practical skills, and these you will be able to apply. It is not like you take this and then wait for additional courses you have to complete before you can. Just leave that, go back to your company, you can start applying. So templates, formats, procedures, all of those are a part of the training program. And finally, we are also looking at, in many of these things, you may be having these skill sets and be able to do it, but we all know working in industry, you have to convince people higher than you. And so we also walk through how to connect to management so that it becomes part of, the business plan. So that's what we want to do. Stop there. Any questions or comments, Amy or Chris or anybody wants to add?
Yeah, I definitely talk about how we designed this course. Well, all 3 badges. We definitely want to make it broad so that it doesn't matter how big or small your company is, where you're at in the journey. We've made it so that it can be super inclusive of all of those parameters and that you're not just getting, one lens or one perspective. You're going to get multiple perspectives. We feel that in this space, it's got to be customized anyway to what your company is doing. What are material issues to your company? What your risk says? I mean, all of those kinds of components have to fit for you. So the idea here is, which was a challenge as we designed it, but it was certainly the intent is to make sure that you hear multiple voices and multiple perspectives as you go through this. So it's not going to be a one size fits all, or here's how we think you should do it. There's going to be a lot of, it's a lot more engagement and thought provoking. And then how are you going to take that skill and adapt it to your needs?
Amy, thank you for that very important point. If you have, it is not like solving a mathematical equation where there is only one way to do it. We're trying to say this is a problem. There were different ways in which you can approach, and depends upon your organization, the nature of your challenge, all of that. But if we walk you through different perspectives, hopefully you have formulated your own approach. what would make sense for your corporation. That's the intent of as we go through the development. Okay. Any questions? If not, we will move on to the next one. So we talked about each badge is 15 hours. We deliver it over, 6 weeks. So it is 2 times we meet per week. That is 4 hours. And so you meet for 4 weeks. And then you take on the next one. If we take a break, and then we can get started on the next badge. So after you complete each one of these, 15-hour modules, you earn a badge. So what is unique about this badge is you can actually post it on LinkedIn. So there are skill sets that you have. So people, when they search and they want people with this kind of skill set, they will be able to get to you. Okay. And initially, these things are not like, sometimes courses are offered in companies where you just go sit down, attend it, have a little discussion. And at the end of that, they just say, well, lucky you, here is your certificate. You just finished it. But there is no guarantee that you have learned any skill set. Ours is not that way. It's an academic kind of an orientation. So there is a rigor. So you are periodically given, pop quizzes, tests, and then you have to do homework, and you also have to do some object work. So it's a combination of these nicely blended in to facilitate the learning experience. So you practice it so that it indeed you have learned it. So when you walk out, it becomes easy for you to start working with it. Okay. Tools and techniques, templates, procedures are also given to you that you can carry with you. That way you can utilize it. So there are 3 batches that we thought we will have. This forms a foundation. After that, you can add badges that you think are appropriate. We will show you some of the badges that we have planned for the future. The first, initial one, we have 3 badges that we are, offering. Chris, you had, okay. Yeah. Chris had to leave. So just wanted to, excuse himself. There are 3 badges in the ESG program. The first one is the framework development. And then the second one is stakeholder management. And finally, it is managing ESG risks. So what are these? In the framework development, this is where we talk about how do you really think about what is appropriate for your company and your needs, which Amy mentioned a little while. So we show you how different companies approach this, what is important, where do you get started, and we will show you for different corporations so that you can decide what is appropriate. The nice thing about that particular 15-hour program is as you walk through each of the steps, you will be part of your homework assignment and project. You will be developing your own, what is appropriate for your company. So are you able to internalize it and develop it for your corporation? So it's much more hands-on in that sense. The second thing that we want is, the reason I mentioned all these 3 are together is they're sort of related, and I'll come back to it in a second. Stakeholder management. In all of this, in any kind of a situation, especially where risks are involved, trust is a very critical component. So when you trust people, then managing risk, you have to trust that they have the capability to manage it. How do you establish trust? So it also starts with initially identifying who your stakeholders are. How do you have conversations with them where they tell you what their needs are as opposed to what you want to hear? So you get to the bottom of that. So we will go through, you will develop for your own corporation who are your key stakeholders, what are their needs, and figure out what may be things you may want to offer. So there again, examples back and forth. And then finally, how do you have a plan? Because you need commitment from others in your corporation to deliver on the commitment you're making to stakeholders. So all of that is part of stakeholder management. Extremely critical because you want to work on areas which are important to your stakeholders. Remember, we did not say shareholders. That would be the old way of thinking where you're looking at only the financial side. These days, when you think about stakeholders, they are all over, you know, and if you don't pay attention, you can be blindsided and have, some kind of an impact on your business. Finally, ESG, managing ESG risk. So think about this for a second. Why are we even looking at ESG? If you don't manage it, it poses a risk to the business. And if you don't manage risk, your business performance is not going to be there. So for that, you need to know what are your risks. Every corporation does this. They know what are all the business risks. All you have to do is take their annual report and go towards the end. It tells you all the risks that they are managing, including some environmental and other kinds. So the question is, are we doing this systematically? So how do you do this systematically? And how do you ensure that it becomes part of the risk register of the corporation? Once it is on the risk register, then people are going to be discussing this all the way up to the highest levels. So many people do not think this is important, and so it is not. Identifying this is not something somebody can sit in the back room and say, well, these are our risks. It's got to be heavily involving the operations. So this has got to become a part of how the company operates. So how do you incorporate that? All of that we will talk about there. I'll stop here for a second and see whether you have any questions or Amy has any comments.
Yeah, and this I would like to emphasize too. In the stakeholder management, we'll be working through the assessment for internal as well. Your internal stakeholders are very important to your ESG management program because you'll have to develop those relationships and processes and so on and so forth, looking at policy, the systematic approach to different things. So we'll spend a great deal of time on how to build those internal relationships as well. That will be key.
Excellent point. Because whenever we think about stakeholders, we think about external. Internal ones are probably, equally important.
Yes.
With that, let's move on to the next one. So learning objectives. So upon completion, participants will not only understand, but be skilled at. So first of all, you need to understand the importance of ESG. So where does it impact your business operations? So we will go through that. And then some core skills and competencies and responsibilities that that we will walk you through, and hopefully you will develop them. First of all, building the ESG framework for your company. That will be one that you will finish. Building a stakeholder management process and a risk management process. Most importantly, this is not going to be a standalone. This is going to become a part and parcel of your business processes. And that is when it just permeates throughout the organization. It's not the 4 people or the 5 people who are, chartered with this that should be focused on. They could be leading it, but everybody has to be involved. Okay. So
and
that's
I would also add here that this is also building and bridging in each of those 3 bullets, because many people may already have some sort of framework or stakeholder management process or risk management, but we're also going to expand upon that. So whether you're starting from scratch or you're going to be bridging into a new way of looking at it, we're going to offer both components to the participants. And of course, by having a participant profile and things like that, we'll be able to really assess the cohort group and make sure that we're really hitting on the needs of those that participate.
Excellent point. because people are at different points in the journey, as Chris pointed out earlier. Wherever you are, if you have already got something, how do you bridge to a next level? Okay, so with that, moving on, the first badge, framework development. Again, we have talked about it, but I'll just to quickly run through. We will talk about various dimensions of various dimensions of ESG, and then how different companies approach this. It all has, some people will have a little bit more of the E part of it, some more on the S part of it. Some may already have a governance structure, some may not have a governance structure. Wherever we are, we just take that, and then how do you bridge, as Amy correctly pointed out, to where you want to be. Okay. The we will, as I said, skills and tool sets. These are, it's not like the school tool sets could be more like procedures, templates that you can use, a way to think about things, step 1, 2, 3, 4. So all of those will be given so that it helps you to get there. Remember, it's not trying to be prescriptive, but trying to be opening up your thinking process so that you land on it by yourself. Industry practitioners, subject matter experts will share their knowledge, a very key component of what we are doing. We do want practitioners to teach as opposed to having some theoretical orientation. Everyone who is going to be teaching in this, Amy is the lead. I will teach on it. Chris Angelitis will be there. And all of us have experience in the CSR area. Okay.
And Dr. Rada, Marie just joined us as well. And she's
fantastic.
Yeah. So thanks for joining, Marie.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Dr. Rada.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Meeting everyone.
Yeah. Marie, let me introduce, Marie to the rest of the folks. Zach and Kay. Marie works as the, I may not remember the correct title, Director of Environmental, no, go ahead, you say your title correctly.
Yeah, I'm the Director of Environmental, Social, and Governance for Schlumberger. We're an oil field service company, as many of you know. And I've been with Schlumberger for 18 years.
She started when she was 6, but in those days, she violated child labor laws at the time.
There you go.
Child prodigy.
No, I'm very excited to be part of this program because corporate responsibility, all of the areas of focus on the environmental and the social side are so key to our industry. And it's incredibly important to be well versed and to understand what the trends are, how you can make this impactful for your company. And I think no matter who you work for, or even if you're not working currently, it's just skill sets that you can apply to a plethora of various industries, because there's some best practices that can be shared across industries. So U of H is doing such an amazing job at developing these badges, and this framework working with Dr. Rada and Amy has been lovely. So really looking forward to meeting everyone and sharing, how Schlumberger applies these key learnings across our strategy.
I'll just, when Murray came in, I'm so happy. One of the things that reminded me about all the other members on the advisory group is the fact that they have not only worked in one country, which is the US, but they have worked all over the world. And they also have enormous experience in how do you take something and incorporate it in all operations in different parts of the world. I know Marie will share some of our experiences on that, because that is what is sort of keeping her awake at night these days. How do we roll this out to everybody so that get everybody involved? And the other thing that we have is a mix. Some people who are traditional oil and gas businesses, some who are in the service organizations, like Schlumberger that Marie is in, some who are downstream which is what Amy brings with her experience in marathon, as well as with Motiva, and then also somebody like a Doug, has got experience in many other industries, including mining and so on. Chris, of course, just like Marie, on the upstream, he brings in. The one guy that we did not have because is not available is Chris Ravi Shankar, and Chris is head of all of their operations in ESG, environment, so on for Occidental Petroleum. One of the key guys who's helped a lot of other people, very knowledgeable in this area, very well recognized by industry people for his knowledge in the area of ESG. So he will also be one of the people who will be lecturing. So as we said, subject matter experts will be sharing their knowledge, and we will have, this is learning, they will work with problems. So you will work through examples, but then work with examples that you can take back to your company. So that's what it is. Case studies will be there to illustrate the point, but then your own example, how you can do it. Preliminary ESG framework for their company. So that would be one of the outputs for badge 1. Do you have a framework that you have developed for your company? So when you go back, you can essentially share that with your management. And in fact, how do you convince them that they should really take it on and roll it out? Okay, so all of that we will go through. Any other comments? Anything to add, Amy? Or?
Yes, one of the things that I liked about designing the framework development is we also tapped into skills, like competencies and things of that nature. Because one of the things that as this ESG platform continues to expand, and many companies are we're already watching the rush for those that are feeling behind, that they're going to put teams together. And so we're also putting in, what do those core competencies in doing this kind of work, sustainability, social responsibility, ESG, look like? So we're going to have lots of good templates for you all to take away that can really be very useful internally. So I remember a time when the HR group didn't even know how to structure our jobs. Many of us wrote our job descriptions 15 years ago. And so there's just been this constant evolution. And now all of a sudden, I think there's a real discipline that has come together in the last 5 years around this, but there's still sketchy information out there. So this will give you a great opportunity in this first badge to really dive a little deeper into what that looks like. And not only for yourself, but for other teammates, and if you have a staff, how to develop them.
In many other jobs, thanks, Amy, brought up a very good point. In many other jobs, you have entry level, like he could be an basic engineer, then becomes like a senior engineer, a process engineer, process manager. So you have some kind of succession. They expect certain skills at each level. There is nothing like that. And Amy and Marie, they will tell you stories about how you're thrown into the job and somehow you gobble it up and then you figure it out. Can we take their experiences and figure out, is there a succession ladder? What kind of skills are required at each level to move up to the next level? And that sort of sets how it could be a standard that we could just lead on to. But certainly we want to identify skills that are required. And so people know that that is what you possess. And so you can easily get and do the job.
Yeah, and I'll add just one more thing that we, with my background, I was able to map those to Korn Ferry. So it's, things that most of your companies, when you look at your own competency structures, they'll be recognizable and they'll be very tangible and hands-on. So I think that'll be a real blessing too, that they're just not things we plucked out of the sky. but they're real manageable, definitions. And we even gave you a range too. So when someone's skilled in the space or has a low skill or an advanced skill in it. So we've given you all three components that will be easy to help you as you continue your journey.
Yeah, and if I could just add one thing that Amy touched on is a lot of people that have started asking about sustainability, ESG, CSR, whatever your company calls it, or CSR. Just because your company may not be communicating in the terms that you're used to seeing what you are doing internally may not mean that it's not being done. It's just a lot of it, and I can speak from experience with Schlumberger, a lot of it is connecting the dots and implementing, like Amy, you said, a framework where it is tangible. Are things that are happening. It's just a question of making sure that you are getting credit and demonstrating your commitment to your various stakeholders, whether that's investors or future employees or current employees, or the broader industry. So it's really demonstrating and making sure that sustainability is being used as to showcase the value that your company brings. And a lot of companies, when even though I have my day job of working for Schlumberger, because we network quite a bit, you do end up kind of, being somebody's ear that are trying to become, more well-versed in the subject, and they'll ask questions regarding, well, we don't do this. And all it takes is the right questions, the right kind of organization, and very quickly people realize, oh, well, we do that. We just don't showcase it in this way. And so that's what this course will also help us look at together, is what are the things that you're actually already doing, and it's just a question of packaging it in a better light to make sure that you're demonstrating that.
Yeah, well said.
Okay, we have a couple of more slides, so I'll go through a little bit quickly. We talked about stakeholder management, so it goes through a little bit more in depth on what we will be covering. And so this is, again, all the steps that you go through in terms of looking at it, not only understanding who they are, who are the stakeholders, what their needs are, and then how do you develop strategies to prioritize their needs, and how do we develop strategies to meet their needs. And then finally, how do we keep track? Because this whole thing, you are not the only person who is engaging with stakeholders. Lots of people in the company would be interacting with the people who are external and also internal. So have a plan. Everybody knows, how it is being implemented. So the moving on to the next one, managing ESG risk. And again, we talked about this a little bit earlier. This is once more identifying what the risks are in the ESG area, the E area, the S area, definitely. And then how do you assess? This is one thing that is quite not so easy as opposed to in traditional risk management. So if you're looking at a project risk, you can just say delays will be there, so many days delay, so this is what it'll cost you, and so on. However, in the area of ESG, how do we quantify that? And then in monetary terms, or how do we quantify that in likelihood terms? So that takes a little bit of, looking at similar situations. And that's where these experts who have really been through that can essentially give you a little bit of insight. How do we think about those risks? And then afterwards, the key thing is making sure it is part of the company's risk register, and you are monitoring it, progress against it, and are you mitigating the risk, or are you able to manage it? So that's what we will go through. These risk management is taught by many other people, but that is general risk for a business. Here, we are specifically talking about what are some special aspects of risks in the ESG area. How do we identify them? More importantly, how do we assess them, their impact and their likelihood? So with that, I just want to leave a few minutes for questions for you guys. So the batch 1 in the ESG program, the dates are, we have already nominated the dates. That's what we are working through. We will meet each week, Mondays and Wednesdays, from 3 to 5. We thought that would be a convenient time because it's getting close to the end of the day. So those who are at work, since you are doing this as part of your work, you can take it at the from wherever you are. All of them are offered on Zoom. And so January 4th through January 20th, and then February 1st to February 17th, and then March 1 through March 17th. So as you noticed, you do it, give a little bit of a break. People can, think about what they have, and then you come back and then pick it up. Okay. So finally, important part of it, individual badges are about $1,000 per badge. And if you take a bundle of all the three, then it is just, you get a small break. So you get about, you pay $2,700. Okay. So with that, what I will do is if there are any questions, let's open it up.
None on mine.
Zach, any questions from you?
No, not really.
Okay. And how about, I'm trying to.
Okay.
No, that's very comprehensive. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So what we will, one more slide I had, which is, these are the ones that build the base. And afterwards, we are thinking about other areas that are getting to be, quite important. And it is about how do you report? What are the things that you need to do? Reporting itself is an important area to think about. And then we will also talk about human rights, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And you can read the rest of it. It's just several topics that are quite hot that people would like to, include, or corporations look to their ESG folks to really just tell them how we do that. So that is what we will go through on some of them. Okay. So with that, let me just get into with where we can see each other and see whether you have any questions on the program or on what you need to do. Oh, we have somebody join us. I just missed it completely. Lotana.
Lotana, yeah.
Lotana has joined us.
We welcomed him when he joined.
Welcome, Lotana.
Thank you, Dr. Rada.
Yeah. So we will, so any suggestions or anything that we need to answer, and we certainly would be interested in having you as students, but we would really like to make sure if you have questions in terms of fit or how would we do this, please feel free. You can ask now or you can ask later.
Yeah, feel free to reach out to any of us at any time.
Thank you. Only thing I do have a question is because just the timing on it being 3 to 5, I was going to work in and stuff, but as far as the 3 to 5, is that ironclad? If you miss a little bit of it, how's it going to affect as far as trying to make time up for each badge? Because of I get called all the time from like CFO or some of the operations directors, so I have sometimes meetings and things like that just come up where I can't get away from them. Like I'm on the fence right now, but I have to join a meeting with our central financial officer, so I can't really stay on too much longer.
Yeah, one of the things, well, this is not the first time we are offering this micro-credentialing. We have one going on in data analytics. We have offered it once. We are offered it. Currently, we are doing it the second time around. We had one on sustainable energy development. So generally using our learnings from that, what we do is we recognize that sometimes people will miss. So every one of our lectures are taped as it is going on. Right now, this session is being taped, so it will be available. So those who want to go back and then look at, if you missed a class, you can look at it, or if you have been in class, but just wanted to see, what did they say? I think I didn't get it completely. You can go back and then look at that. So that is one way to be able to make up. Okay.
Only thing I have.
It's a
Any
great
other-
question.
Any other question? Anything that we can do? If not, pass the word around so that if there are others who are also colleagues, friends of yours, who are interested in this, we have another session that is scheduled for, like this one, an information session, which is scheduled for the 9th, which is 1 week from today. And the way the program is going is once you join the program, somebody joins it, we have one other session, which is a get to know session, which will be around the 16th. Did we say 16th or? Yes, before we go for Christmas holidays, we have one session. All the students are coming in. It is sort of like a get to know each other, because not under the pressure of a lecture and things like that. So people know who else is attending it, because many times those contacts are very, very crucial. Because after you leave the course, hopefully you have formed a little network of alumni who have got very similar interests, similar challenges, and then they can stay in touch. So that would be the one. If it was face-to-face, it would be a lot easier. Yeah, but here, short of that, we try to do it in virtually, okay?
Perfect.
Thank you both, Kay and Zach, for attending, and Lotana for being here, okay? And thanks, Murray. Thanks, Amy.
Welcome. Thanks,
Okay.
everybody. Have a great week.
Y'all have a great day.
Everyone.
You all have a great day.
Everyone, thank you. Bye, Dr. Rada.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.